In small rural towns across Colombia and Venezuela, some mothers still do one very specific thing before letting their daughters play outside. They braid their hair tightly, without exception. Ask why, and most give the same answer, half joking and half serious. So El Duende doesn't get any ideas. El Duende is one of the most widespread legends in Latin American folklore, small, mischievous, and far more unsettling than his tiny size suggests. Today I'll take you through what he is, why he's obsessed with young girls' hair, and one specific night that's still told in the same countryside families generation after generation. Descriptions of El Duende are remarkably consistent across hundreds of miles and multiple countries, which is part of what makes the legend so unsettling. He's small, roughly the size of a young child, with a wrinkled, sun-weathered face far older than his tiny body suggests. His single most recognizable feature is his hat, an enormous, wide-brimmed sombrero, several sizes too big, that hides most of his face in permanent shadow. Underneath it, witnesses describe glimpsing sharp eyes, a wide grin, and skin the color of old tree bark. He wears simple, ragged countryside clothing and moves through dense forest and overgrown farmland with unnatural ease and silence. Rural families across the region describe him less as a monster and more as a permanent, uninvited neighbor who happens to live in the trees around their homes. Most of the time, El Duende's presence shows up as small, irritating household mischief rather than outright danger. Tools go missing from exactly where you left them, only to reappear days later in a completely different, often absurd location. Horses are found in the morning with their manes and tails braided into dozens of small, impossibly tight knots. Farmers describe waking to find garden rows disturbed overnight, fences quietly rearranged, or doors left open that were bolted the night before. None of this is considered truly dangerous. It's treated more like living with a very old, very patient prankster who was there long before your family arrived. But everyone in these communities agrees on one specific rule, taken far more seriously than any of the pranks. Never let a young girl's hair go unbraided at night. El Duende's most defining, most unsettling trait is his fixation on the long hair of young girls, particularly those who haven't yet reached adolescence. Families describe waking their daughters in the morning to find their hair braided into elaborate, almost impossibly intricate patterns overnight. Braiding itself isn't the frightening part. What unsettles people is that no one in the house did it, and the girl never woke up during the night. In the most repeated versions of the legend, El Duende doesn't simply admire the hair. He becomes genuinely attached, almost infatuated with one specific girl. When that happens, families describe him lingering closer to the house, watching from the tree line, growing bolder about approaching at night. The tradition of braiding girls' hair tightly before bed isn't just superstition passed down for fun. In these communities, it's treated as basic, necessary protection. Some families go further, tying small red ribbons into the braid, believing the color specifically discourages him from getting too close. One of the most repeated versions of this story comes from a small countryside community, passed down through at least 3 generations of the same family. A young girl named Marisol lived on a small farm at the edge of a dense patch of forest that her family had worked for decades. She had long, dark hair that her mother braided every single night without exception, a routine so automatic nobody questioned it anymore. One particularly hot evening, exhausted after a long day of chores, her mother finished dinner, checked on Marisol, and fell asleep before finishing the nightly braid. Marisol, already half asleep herself, didn't think much of it. Her hair was down, loose across the pillow, and she drifted off without a second thought. Later that night, she woke briefly to a strange, gentle tugging sensation at the back of her head, rhythmic and careful, like careful fingers working through her hair. Half asleep, she assumed it was her mother finishing the braid she'd forgotten earlier and drifted back to sleep without opening her eyes. In the morning, her hair was braided more perfectly and more intricately than her mother had ever managed, with small wildflowers woven neatly into the pattern. Her mother stared at the braid in stunned silence because she remembered falling asleep before finishing it, and she certainly hadn't added any flowers. Later that day, Marisol's older brother found small, child-sized footprints circling the house repeatedly outside her window, stopping directly beneath it. Family didn't need to discuss what had happened. Every adult in the house understood immediately, and the mood in the home shifted overnight. From that point on, Marisol's mother never again fell asleep before finishing her daughter's braid, no matter how exhausted she was. But over the following weeks, small signs continued. a wildflower left on the windowsill, faint, impossibly light footsteps circling the house at night. One evening, Marisol's father, increasingly uneasy, decided to sit outside near the tree line after dark, determined to see what had been visiting his daughter's window. He waited for hours in near total silence, watching the dark line of trees at the edge of the property, until he heard it. A low, cheerful whistling tune. From the shadows between two trees, he saw it clearly for the first time. A small figure beneath an enormous hat, watching the house with unmistakable focus. When their eyes met, or what he assumed were eyes beneath that shadowed brim, the whistling stopped instantly, and the figure simply stepped backward into the trees and was gone. He never saw it directly again, but he never stopped believing for the rest of his life that it had been watching his daughter specifically, not the house in general. Versions of El Duende appear under slightly different names and details across almost the entire Spanish-speaking world, with striking core similarities. Folklorists trace the figure back to Spanish colonial folklore, brought across the Atlantic and blended with existing indigenous forest spirit beliefs already present in the Americas. In that reading, El Duende represents an old, pre-existing idea. The forest itself has a guardian, and that guardian does not appreciate being ignored or disrespected. Other versions lean more directly into cautionary storytelling, designed specifically to keep young children close to home after dark in dangerous rural terrain. Child genuinely could get lost, injured, or worse, wandering alone into dense, unfamiliar forest at night, long before flashlights or fenced properties existed. A small, hat-wearing figure obsessed with hair is a far more memorable warning for a child than a simple, forgettable instruction to stay indoors. Read that way, the legend isn't really about a supernatural threat at all. It's generations of practical parenting wisdom, wrapped in something children would actually remember and repeat. Other tellings keep him more purely supernatural, an old territorial spirit bound to a specific patch of forest, land, or even a single ancient tree. In several versions, disrespecting his territory, cutting down a tree without asking, or wandering too deep into his woods invites far worse mischief than misplaced tools. There's a second, less commonly told side to the legend that reframes El Duende as something more complicated than a simple threat. In these versions, he's also described as a guardian of hidden treasure, gold or silver buried generations ago and long forgotten by everyone except him. According to this telling, a person who treats him with genuine respect, offering tobacco, food, or simple courtesy at the edge of the forest, might be rewarded rather than punished. Stories describe lucky farmers finding small amounts of gold coin or unexplained good fortune after leaving out simple offerings for weeks without complaint. The same stories always include a warning. Greed ruins it completely. Anyone who tries to demand the treasure or follows him deliberately to find it is never seen again. This dual nature, playful trickster, protective and jealous guardian, and secretive treasure keeper is part of why the legend has survived so consistently for centuries. Even today, in smaller, more rural communities, a specific set of unofficial rules about El Duende gets passed down almost automatically to every new generation. Rule 1. Always braid a young girl's hair completely before bed, without exception, especially if the household is near forest or dense tree line. Rule 2. If you hear cheerful, unaccompanied whistling coming from the tree line at night, do not go looking for its source. Rule 3. If tools or small objects go missing without explanation, leave a small offering, food, or tobacco at the forest's edge rather than getting angry. Rule 4. Never mock him out loud, even as a joke. Several tellings insist that disrespect specifically provokes worse mischief than simple bad luck. Families who follow these unwritten rules describe an oddly manageable relationship with whatever lives at the edge of their land, more neighbor than monster. Families who ignore them, according to the stories, tend to have far worse luck and far more sleepless nights than families who simply play along. Marisol, now an old woman herself, still braids her own granddaughter's hair every single night exactly as her mother once did for her. When asked why, by grandchildren too young yet to fully believe the story, she gives the same answer her mother gave her decades earlier. Not really an explanation, just a quiet, practiced routine, passed down without question, the way real family superstitions usually are. Because somewhere out past the edge of that same patch of forest, according to the family, footprints still occasionally circle a house at night. And every so often, farmers nearby report waking to find something small, intricate, and undeniably deliberate braided into hair that was loose the night before. Whether you believe in the forest spirit or simply in a very old and very effective piece of parenting wisdom, the outcome ends up exactly the same. Somewhere in Latin America tonight, a mother is braiding her daughter's hair a little more carefully than usual, just in case. And if you ever hear cheerful whistling coming from somewhere in the trees after dark, you now know exactly whose advice to take. Don't go looking.